right, people, so here we go. We're talking about finding the charge of the central atom in either a molecule or a polyatomic ion. Since we're talking about covalent substances, they have a flexible valence, so sometimes atoms act like they have a different charge than you would normally expect. If you looked at their oxidation numbers, you might expect sulfur to always have a -2 charge, but sometimes it can act like it has a positive charge depending on the situation it's in. So let's do a couple of these, and then you'll be able to do the homework if you're at home. All right, so if we looked at some of these, what if we were talking about what's the charge of the S in sulfate? All right, the S in sulfate. Sulfate is SO4 with a -2 charge. So that means the total charge needs to be -2. All right? You know that every oxygen is -2. Every time. Oxygen is always -2. So all of these -2s add up to -8. The overall charge has to be -2. So that means the sulfur was +6. So the sulfur in sulfate is +6 because +6 minus 8 equals -2. That's why sulfate has a -2 charge. Does that make sense? What if we were looking at sulfite? Sulfite is a polyatomic ion, right? That is SO3 -2. So there are 3 oxygens, right? The 3 oxygens all add up to -6. What minus 6 equals -2? What's your guess? +4. So sulfur and sulfite is in a +4 situation. What if we wanted to try, what is the S in sulfur dioxide? Sulfur dioxide is SO2. There's no charge. It's just sulfur dioxide, right? What is O every time, Alyssa? -2. So there's 2 -2s. So for all my oxygens, there's -4. Do you agree with that? So what must the sulfur be here? +4. So the sulfur in sulfur dioxide is acting like it's a +4 charge. Does that make sense to everybody? What about, let's try the carbon and carbonate. Carbonate is CO3 with a -2 charge. We know every time oxygen is -2, so we have 3 -2s. So there's a total of -6 for the oxygen. The whole thing is equal to -2. So carbon must have been +4. Carbon in carbonate is +4. Does that make sense? All right. That's it. There's really not much more explaining to do there, you people at home. It's pretty straightforward.